Fire department, police department for a great job last Wednesday, Thursday. Unfortunately for the DPW, it carried over until Friday, Saturday, and Sunday clearing drifts. And also a big shout out and a thank you to the fire department and police department for their quick reaction yesterday for stopping the fire at the mobile home park, which could have spread pretty quickly with the wind, and also the fact that the fire hydrant they had to utilize was all the way out on Bristol Ferry Road. So they did a great job knocking it down and containing the damage. Unfortunately, one family did completely lose all their belongings, and the second family lost most of it. So if you have the ability to do so, I know there are a few GoFundMe sites out there, and also they're accepting donations, clothing, and things like that. So if people have the ability to do so, please help. Tonight, we are here to discuss our legislative priorities. We have our representative, John Edwards, Jay Edwards from Tiverton and Portsmouth, Ken Mendonca from, I'm always going to say your name wrong, Ken, I apologize, and our Senator Jim Seveny. Representative Canario and Representative Donovan were both out of town and couldn't be here this evening. So we were going to run through both the town and the schools wish list for our priorities this year. And would you like to go first? Okay. What we have is the town council's legislative priority. There's not a lot of meat behind these. We put these together. I was given these by the different councilors. I consolidated it down. So as we go through the list, if the councilors who put these forth want to expand on them, we will do so. If anybody else wants to make comment, feel free to do so as well. First up, we have developed a statewide policy for the safety and well-being of students during the school day, and that was put on by Ms. Pedro. If you want to expand on that, I think it's somewhat self-explanatory.
Right now?
Absolutely.
Wow.
We'll go one at a time.
Well, here we go.
First one of 2018.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I put that on because I just had some information about some incidents that had happened at the high school. And I know that there's a lot of pressure for kids right now, be it with Facebook and, like I didn't have these things when I was a kid. You know, you have, people can ruin you, kids can ruin you on Facebook just with a post or whatever. And, there's a lot of, there's violence now happening in our schools, and that's all being posted on Facebook as well. And I know that there are kids that are choosing to drop out and go to online education and getting their GEDs online, and I just don't think that that's a good thing for our kids. I know we had an incident at high school just before the vacation that was pretty severe with a beating, and it just kind of shook me, and it shook some of the people that saw it too, and I just think that there should be a policy for the kind of violence that's starting to happen. I mean, it's happening statewide, but our schools have been pretty safe so far, but now I think it's sort of leaking into our school system as well. And so I just thought, one of the things that bothered me about this particular incident was that it was a pretty severe incident, and the culprit, the person that was doing the beating, I should say, it was only given 3 weeks suspension, and I just think that there needs to be some more consequences or something that are equal to the event that happened. I know that if something like that had happened when I was in school, the person may have been suspended indefinitely or even expelled. And so anyway, I just think that this is becoming more and more an issue. It's statewide, and that's why I put it on.
Okay. Anybody? Anna, would you like to respond to that at all, or this is it's a statewide issue? Maybe what you're looking for is more of a general policy that filters down from the state level.
Yeah, I think that kids need to be more accountable. I just think that 3-week suspension and tutoring for someone for a violent act is just, it doesn't match the act.
So I'm not going to speak to that specific incident because I do want to respect the privacy of the students that were involved. But there are only 3 reasons by law that we would be allowed to expel a student. One is weapons, the other is drugs, and the other is assaulting a teacher. So we are limited, and there were a lot more, it was at the principal's discretion in the past to expel a student. That's not the case because we have to make sure that we educate all of our students. And we have to find sometimes creative ways to do that, and we try to protect all of our students, but we are also required by law to provide an education to every student, regardless of what occurs in the building. We do work very hard at keeping students safe, and I guess what's different about fights today from fights that happened 20 years ago or 30 years ago when I was in high school is now they're all on social media. I mean, there were fights at Portsmouth High School 20 years ago, I promise you that. They just weren't blasted all over social media. Nowadays, everything that happens is immediately public and immediately out there for everyone to see. So it does complicate all of the work that we do with students, and also we do not share with anyone what the consequences are for a student. I guess one of the things that we always say to parents is you have to trust that we are providing consequences in line with everything that happens in the school, but that information is not public. Every student's specific information is private, both ways.
No, we're also practicing the principle of restorative justice too. So rather than just punishing the student, we're trying to rehabilitate them too. Maybe if you can expand on that.
Sure. So all of our schools work on a positive behavior system. We work to encourage students and respect for others and positive behaviors. And we also have a lot of restorative justice practices going on kindergarten through grade 12. We've been doing a lot of training over the last 3 years in the district around how to support students, both the social emotional issues and just general mental health. So we do a lot of that work, and restorative justice is really the work that engages students in not just a response to a specific action, but how to train themselves to react to those situations every time that they happen, and how to support each other in preventing those incidents from happening. Our students are under a lot of pressure because of social media. Things start on social media that then come into school, and we're working really hard with students to prevent the fight from happening in the first place. So when you get this kind of action on social media, what can you do to kind of stop that next step? How do we work towards that? So our work around social emotional supports for students, and really that restorative justice piece is kind of flipping the script. Instead of punish, 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 it's how can we work with students to understand what happened, and then to repair that relationship and to continue to grow as a citizen of the school.
Anyway, for all the reasons that Anna Riley just gave, I think that that's why we need a different policy because of the social media, because it's completely on Facebook, and kids are afraid. Kids are getting afraid to go to school. And, maybe it should be at the discretion, again, of the principal to be able to match what should be done. Because sometimes there are acts that are just, they're that bad. And anyway, that's why I put it on.
And maybe overall, just say something very quickly, is that maybe it shouldn't be a right to go to school. Maybe it should be a privilege. Thank you.
I would disagree with that, Albert. The Constitution should say that every child has a right to an education, and we get that through the public schools.
Either you three gentlemen want to comment on that? It's, yeah. That would be a bad guess.
I understand you have a very limited amount of time. You might want to move it along. I know you have some very interesting issues here that we'd like to
We got all night.
explain.
We got all night.
You might, Councilman.
We got all night. Item number 2, it was, Ms. Pedro also put this on, and it was respect to the Paw Sox Stadium and expanding the eminent domain. I increased it to, reject any expansion of eminent domain, not just specifically for the Paw Sox Stadium, but just in general. Leave eminent domain alone. We don't need to be doing eminent domain, this is my personal opinion, for private entities. Ms. Pedro, your agenda item, but
That's good.
I shrunk it down a little bit.
That's good.
Okay. Anybody else? And also, item number 3, Ms. Pedro asked to put this on as well. Specifically, it was binding arbitration toward and a never-ending contract specifically for public sector unions in the schools and outside of fire and police.
Which we already discussed
Yeah.
and sent a resolution.
We sent a resolution last year.
To that effect, so I just wanted to keep that going.
Do we need to send another resolution to you folks for this year as well? If you let us know when that bill comes forth, if it's already come forth.
You can be proactive.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll put that on the 22nd.
Do you want
We could, you want to go through
I
ours
think-
separately?
I think
Okay.
that you guys
We
have the
have it on
same,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Next up, Mr. Gleason put this on to provide additional funding for municipal police departments to help combat DUI and improve safety on the roads. Specifically, safety on the roads was for more speeding enforcement as well, right?
Yes, and not just state roads, but town roads. And I don't know if this is something that anything can be done at the legislative level, but I was thinking of, obviously Chief Lee is doing a fine job out there, but if there were pockets of money that were available to all municipal police departments for additional patrols, so to speak, that would be my intent. Anything you do with that for DUI-related, speeding, etc.
That generally comes through DOT, RIDOT.
Yes, they do receive grants from DOT.
Okay.
Right. So it was a gray area. I didn't know if anything could be done at the legislative level, but it's out there.
We're going to talk about it again when we get there.
Okay. Next up was number 5 is repair the budget and legislative process. Ms. Ujifusa,
I just
and
want
please just do me a favor, just put the microphone just a little closer, whichever one you can get to. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to our legislators that if a process is broken, you can't get anything substantive done. And I would urge you to make sure that leadership takes steps to avoid repeating the 2017 month-long standoff, delaying the budget, as well as the subsequent rushed legislative review and passage. That whole process last year, I think, could have been avoided, and I hope certainly will be avoided in 2018.
To piggyback on that, I mean, we all watch it every single year. It's the last, well, it'll probably be earlier this year because it's an election year, but the budget process shouldn't be a 48-hour period. It should be debated, just like we have to sit here and debate our budgets for over 6 to 8 weeks. It shouldn't be a 48-hour period to say, let's start staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning and discussing what's going to be close to a $10 billion budget this year. So, anybody else have a comment on that? Number 6, work on mitigating the effects of climate change on coastal communities, which was also Ms. Ujifusa. And I did send Ms. Ujifusa had a larger, and Dr. Ryan had a larger backup piece that I did forward off. You guys all got that as well, correct? Okay. And also, Ms. Pedro's backup should have been attached there as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that climate change and sea level rise caused by human activities are scientific facts that cannot be negated by political opinions. We live on an island and must take actions now to protect ourselves. We ask you to support the Energize RI Act, the carbon pricing legislation, as well as other climate change mitigation legislation. It's outlined in a commission report that I cited in the document that I sent to you.
Okay. That is a request from Ms. Ujifusa. I do not support carbon taxing and believe that, and this is my opinion, not the council's opinion, but believe that any effects of putting a carbon tax is just going to affect the lower income people by increased energy prices, and the people who can't afford it the least are going to be affected by it. There are other things we can do besides putting a carbon tax on energy bills to help mitigate the effects of sea level rise. My personal opinion. If anybody else has comment on that, feel free.
I agree with you, Mr. Hamilton.
Number 7, protect Rhode Island citizens' health and welfare. Do not cut Medicaid funding and support the single payer. Ms. Ujifusa, and I'm assuming this is going to be the good doctor.
Good guess. I'll try to be brief because I have virtually no voice left. Medicaid, we've cut it, or I should say the previous budget cut it. Medicaid provides funding for care for the most vulnerable members of our state. It provides the majority of funding, for instance, for nursing home care for the elderly. Cutting it is going to affect people who can least afford to cope with that action. Likewise, money that flows into the state through the matching Medicaid, federal Medicaid funding, is immediately spent within the state, and so it is a stimulus to the economy. This is not wasted money. As far as single payer is concerned, I put this on the agenda because this is something that needs to happen nationally. It can happen in the state. That's how Canada did it in '62. The province of Saskatchewan actually passed a single payer initiative for the entire province, which worked for 10 years until it was so obviously effective that the Canadian federal government just nationalized it. We could do the same in Rhode Island. Our healthcare system is crumbling. Half of the hospitals in Rhode Island have had to be sold to out-of-state entities because they are insolvent. More recently, one of them, Pawtucket Memorial, has had to close its doors. For anybody who's watching this, the signs of collapse are obvious. The Congressional Budget Office predicts that by 2025, the cost of a healthcare policy for the average family of 4 will equal roughly 50% of that family's income. The system that we have is utterly unsustainable and will collapse. We do have legislation pending in, it's going to be reintroduced into the House, which unfortunately, Mr. Mendonça, you will be forced to hear us go on at great length during one of your committee hearings. I apologize in advance for that. And I would like to thank Senator Seveny for actually sponsoring the Senate bill and being willing to listen to us as we do our Chicken Little imitation about how bad things are. But anyway, that is my political legislative priority.
Your voice held out quite well. Anyone else care to comment on either one of those two items? In terms of Medicaid funding, having worked as a supplier to nursing homes for years, the work that is put in, especially by the CNAs, is God's work, and they deserve every penny that you can get them. It's unbelievable what they put up with, the nurses and the CNAs. The nurses and the CNAs. Sure, the dietary aides too, Andrew. They're doing God's work, and they're protecting the most vulnerable, as Dr. Ryan mentioned. I'm not necessarily sold on single payer yet, but definitely Medicaid expansion, yeah.
It will solve the OPEB problem.
It would solve the OPEB problem, that is for sure. Ms. Pedro.
Yeah, like the previous item, I don't agree with supporting single payer either, so it's not a unanimous.
Right. But none of these items across the board have been voted on by the entire council. These are legislative priorities put forth by individual councilors that we put on to discuss as a council tonight. I know the school committee had a discussion back in their first meeting in December, last meeting in December, and did up and down vote on their items, so we'll bring those up in a minute. Limiting corporate welfare, Ms. Ujifusa. I think generally speaking, we're looking at try to avoid handouts to entice companies to come in and hopefully give more money to people more in need, say like the people of Portsmouth.
Right, and I think one thing you left off on that item for me was that we could close this. The big question, and I've seen all of you mention it in the paper, is that how are we going to close the big budget deficit? And while I certainly think that it's important to look at cutting inefficient or ineffective programs. There's also the matter of looking at how we, in 2006, cut the taxes on the wealthiest people in Rhode Island, and hoping that this trickle-down economic theory would help the economy, and it certainly did not. I think there's actually states where it's had catastrophic effects to continue to cut, as in Kansas, to cut the taxes on the wealthy. I think that you have to revisit not simply raising the taxes, just going back to what we had in 2006. That policy did not work. You should look to close the budget gap by reversing the Carcieri 2006 tax cuts.
Now, I disagree with the term trickle-down economics, and we won't go there. Supply-side economics would be a better terminology, but cutting taxes for S corporations and small businesses does help to grow the economy. 2006 legislation was put in place, got hurt by a little thing called the crash of 2009. So I believe we'll start seeing some payoff from both the taxes that were taken care of 4 weeks ago, and also hopefully we'll start seeing some returns from 2006. Unfortunately, good old Rhode Island is always last to come out of things. Anyone else for item 7? And I think one thing that was, and Ms. Pedro, I'll get right back to you, and one thing that was left out is we're spending an awful lot of money trying to entice companies to come here by giving them pretty substantial tax breaks. We should be looking more at an overall tax structure and not trying to pick winners and losers. Ms. Pedro?
Yeah, I like that idea. I work for a corporation, and a lot of corporations are small businesses, and the better the corporation does, the better everyone does, because we give jobs. I make more money, I spend my money locally. It's just, it does work. So.
Anyone else? Marijuana legislation to provide sensible additions to help with the substance abuse funding and controls. Mr. Ryan, you want to comment on this one? Is this you? Is this?
The marijuana legislation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but the idea that marijuana has a therapeutic role is debatable and has not been studied nearly as well as almost the rest of the pharmaceuticals we use in medicine. It unfortunately has a very high propensity to lend itself as a recreational substance, which makes it especially tricky to legislate and manage. I think further study needs to be done on this drug, which has largely unknown long-term effects on developing brains, which has debatable therapeutic effects, before we just decide to wholesale approve this as something that should be made generally available to the public. My opinion.
Right. That said, obviously one of the major concerns of not legalizing marijuana is that it is used as a club to pursue criminal actions against many people who should not be treated as criminals. And so from that perspective, and especially given what Attorney General Sessions just did, it's quite terrible for marijuana to be used as a criminalizing issue. However, I certainly agree with Dr. Ryan's analysis from a physician's point of view about studying this drug more. But we can't criminalize this and create more people in the prison system unnecessarily.
Representative Edwards, I know you've done a lot of study on this, and
yes,
you put forth the decriminalization.
A couple of years ago,
yep.
Met with their Department of Revenue, toured their facilities. Colorado had probably the best rollout of any of the states in the country. Oregon had, at the same time, probably the most miserable rollout. Oregon rolled it out as a crop, and the state of Colorado rolled it out as a continued controlled substance that has to be grown inside. In Oregon, you can grow it 6 feet off the road. It has to be shielded. And they went overnight from having 6,000 licenses to 60,000. So there's a lot of work that has to happen before anything happens in the state. There's also a lot of money that has to be spent up front if the state wants to go that route. Something I did learn from Colorado. They spent almost $35 million in the prelude to it. Currently, the House has a commission, a joint commission with the Senate, and Representative Canario is a co-chair of that commission, and they are studying this particular issue. I don't see this coming out of the House or Senate this year.
Okay. The second...
And to your point, Councilwoman, I actually had marijuana decriminalized in 2011 simply because of the fact that they were using it as a club. And now small amounts of marijuana are no longer used as a club as they were.
Mr. Farber.
I'm personally opposed to legalization of marijuana, but I think one of the things that's lost in the discussion is the cost to the state, to the country, to the state, with respect to medical consequences of people that are not accustomed to smoking pot, or worse, the edible marijuana, because at the current time, in Colorado specifically, the edible marijuana has no labeling. You don't even know how much you're consuming. And I went to a seminar where a psychiatrist, I believe it was, or at least a psychologist, was the spokesperson. He was from Colorado. The revenue, people talk about what a great revenue generator this would be. The revenue in Colorado, you may have a different viewpoint, but this is what he said, was negligible. And then he went on to cite the medical expenses that are not counted, he personally dealing with panic attacks and of many of these people. And then, of course, there's the issue, is it a gateway drug or not? I would defer to Dr. Ryan, or there's somebody more qualified than I am on that subject. But I personally think I doubt that there's a net benefit, and I suspect that there's a net detriment to the state budget by legalizing marijuana. And one of the other things that really surprised me is on the edible marijuana, and again I'll defer to you, but my understanding is it takes 2 to 3 hours after somebody's consumed it for the effects to impact them. I talked about this the last time we met. And so somebody, a youngster in the high school, for example, could eat gummy bears that are laced with marijuana. And that's another thing. The lacing of marijuana now today includes fentanyl. You may not even know the fentanyl's in it. But apparently it's become, quite the thing. And also in Colorado, despite legalization, there's still a black market, a substantial black market, again, according to this. I think Terry was with me at that meeting. There were a couple of, and Tom, I believe, were at that meeting. So I just think there are a lot of issues, and the net take that I have is that legalization would just not be of benefit to the state.
The second part of that is help with more funding for our own substance abuse issues. We have a fantastic prevention coalition that has now been regionalized here in Newport County because of changes in the funding. Any extra money that could help specifically to keep kids off of drugs. Obviously, everybody's aware of the growing opioid issue. We need to help. We need to make sure that we're keeping kids from taking that next step, and the police and the fire department from chasing people around. And I don't even know the numbers we have this year for overdoses and overdoses that have been reversed, but it's been, one is too many, and we've had more than one, I know that.
Especially when they're gummy bears. I mean...
Yep. So anything you guys can do to help fund the programs would be greatly appreciated. Number 10, we ask this every year, for, provide support for the transfer of the Navy properties. That could happen 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, but...
Could you just elaborate a little bit on that for us, please?
Well,
I could.
I'll start with Terry. Ms. Ujifusa put it on, but you're part of the...
If you don't mind, I'll weigh in. I believe there's a committee, a subcommittee that's being co-chaired by Deborah Giro and Lou DePalma for the Defense, I think it's called the Defense Economy Commission. They...
It's a very broad committee.
Right, but they have a budget request of $300,000. I believe some of those funds would go to actually study the infrastructure, primarily the water system, so that a number could be put on what kind of upgrades would be needed if one, either Newport or Portsmouth Water and Fire District were to absorb that piece. I think that would be, if Aaron from the Chamber would explain that would make it better for the BRAC process if the Navy, if it was more inexpensive, more cost-effective for the Navy to stay on Aquidneck Island, that would be if they could get rid of that infrastructure that they want to get rid of, but we need to figure out how that can happen without affecting the ratepayers on the existing systems. Does that make sense?
Sure. Can you just get us some more information on that so we can follow it for you?
Yes.
Ms. Donovan, can you forward
I don't have
our...
a Navy base, so I don't really follow it.
Oh.
I'm going to ask Ms. Donovan to forward you the Woodward and Kern study from 2 years ago?
Completed in 2016, correct.
I'm sorry, I didn't see
How about
it back
that?
there.
See how easy that was? If you could please forward that to our 5
Absolutely.
legislators, that'd be great. Essentially, what the infrastructure study or analysis is just an inventory of what exists. The basic number that was floated around to upgrade the Burma Road access area was about $30 million for the sewers and the waters. It's a good chunk of change. The biggest issue is nobody really knows what the heck is under Burma Road. So we're not going to take it on, Middletown's not going to take it on, and when the offer was made to DOT, they said, nah, we don't want it either. So just simple things like the other day, half the road gets plowed because the Navy doesn't want to do it. So we don't have any access from, well, there was limited access down to Melville for a little while until somebody rattles a cage. So there are other issues in there, but generally speaking, it's always going to be money. And the best thing for this economy and the new BRAC process is starting now. We don't want to lose the Navy base in Newport. No, the effect of the entire Aquidneck Island is its own economy. We cannot lose the Navy base. It'll affect the town of Portsmouth, period. So, Mr. Giuffus, I know you put this on there, but did we cover everything? Fantastic. Provide additional funding for local libraries and historical societies. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
I would add senior centers.
And senior centers. Okay. We can do that. Senior centers would be good as well. Heck, I'd like to see a brand new senior center, but Representative Cicilline hasn't found me the money yet. I keep asking him, though. Ensure the planned school building infrastructure funding is provided for all communities. Do not penalize districts like Portsmouth who have been funding improvements all along. I still refer to the inequitable funding formula that was put forth 7 years ago now, that has taken about $250,000 a year out of the Portsmouth budget. It affects directly the people who pay taxes in the town of Portsmouth. And it's not fair that we are doing things the right way, managing our budgets correctly, and we are penalized by the state, and I'll just use the inside of the Route 10 area, monopolizing the money to help pay for communities that didn't manage their budgets properly and had to go, let's say, to bankruptcy, even though the state was funding their school system 100% when they went to bankruptcy. So that's my editorial comment for the evening on that. Anyone else? Okay. So when this plan comes forward, and there's, what is the number they're throwing out there? $1 billion? 500 billion one year, 500 million one year, and 500 the next?
There's the cost, the approximate cost of rebuilding, improving the schools throughout the state is roughly $1 billion. The state treasurer is currently proposing 2 bonds, each of $250 million. One in, I don't know, I can't remember if it's this upcoming election. I think it is the upcoming election, 250, and then 250 and 222. And the belief is that combined with the individual community contributions and having the state remain at the current $80 million a year that they allocate for improvements, you'll get to the $1 billion in 10 years, but that's what the numbers are. And it's for another discussion, but in that bond proposal, there are bonus points for communities that move faster with respect to improving their facilities and so forth. We haven't, as a school committee, discussed that yet.
Again, we're because of good management, we're ahead of the curve. There are things that we're not going to be able to do big ticket items except for that new middle school that the school committee wants.
A related point, too, that the state treasurer mentioned, is that the obvious question people would have is, what would this do to the taxes for the state? And allegedly, the bond, the indebtedness, the state's debt service is being reduced to such a point that this, according to the state treasurer, would have negligible effect on the state taxes. Is that...
If that's the case, then we don't need number 13, do we?
Well, that's beyond my...
I know. That's that. You don't have any roads going through our schools, thank God.
Well, just to your point on item 12, very selfishly, the construction industry was anxiously anticipating this work. And for every dollar you give to a construction worker, $3 come back to the economy because they spend everything locally. So this is a good thing for our overall economy.
I'm okay somewhat with the plan. My concern is that Portsmouth is doing the right thing and investing millions of dollars over the past couple of years, specifically almost $1 million, just upgrading our heating system that thankfully kept our schools warm in the past 20 days when it was freezing out.
Tiverton did the same thing. We had $30 million in new elementary schools.
Right.
So we're in the same boat.
I don't want to see us penalized because we've done the right thing, where other people who have not done the right thing. You know, there has to be a carrot and a stick here someplace. And we've gone with the carrot and done the right things going forward, in the past and going forward, where other communities have had to do the same every 5-year plan that the school committee does. They just don't act on it. They make the plan, they just don't do anything. So, anybody else want to comment on that? That's. I don't know if I've covered it. I know there's some, and you're going to cover it again. Number 13 is mine. The tolling plan is ridiculous, unneeded, and should be repealed 100%. Do not put those gantries up. It's a waste of $68 million. Period. Anybody else?
I agree with you. And
Okay.
that,
And the signs should come down too. Turning them from blue to green is ridiculous.
some of them have come down, though, I've noticed.
They haven't. They've come down, but they went back up green.
And I don't know on those signs how they can put them up before the project and say that the project is on schedule.
It's
How
in
do,
advance.
they put it up a year before it's supposed to be completed and said it's on time, on budget. Well, how do we know that?
The engineering.
Either way. Again, tolling is not the way to raise funds in the state. We could save money. It's been talked about now for 2 years, and there's an awful lot of projects going on without the money. So there are ways to find money within a $10 billion budget to fund $15 million a year in extra money that's needed for the toll plan, or for roadworks, quote unquote. Did you gentlemen get the school committees as well? Yes? Okay, thank you. So now we're going to move on to the school committee's legislative priorities, and to do that, I will turn it over to school committee chairperson.
Thank you. Good evening. We tried to consolidate ours and to shorten them down to a couple. We didn't get down to one page like you, but so our number one priority, which we have 3 priorities, basically top priorities, and the first one is support for our prevention coalition and to find find a funding source. I think Senator Sevigny put through a bill last session. I believe it's called the Uniform Controlled Substances Act. Is that correct? We would support that, and we would like to see
Not only
that.
did I support it, Chairman, but I was also the House sponsor of it.
Yes. Yes. I guess we'd like to see it come to the floor.
Well, it will come to the floor if it comes to the budget.
Pardon?
Last year, we had one bill after the budget had already been passed. It would have created an imbalance in the budget.
Okay.
So rather than pass an imbalance in the budget, we decided to put it off until this year.
So you foresee that coming up? Okay. well, we would reiterate our support for that. And I think that would provide a funding stream for our prevention coalitions. Right. Okay. Did anybody else have anything to add to that particular?
I would add just, along with that, we have funded SROs in both of our schools. If there was a funding source from the state to help support those SROs, that would be helpful as well.
And that would help my agenda item as well.
Yes.
Yes.
That's another factor that I forgot to mention. Facebook, violence and the drugs.
Is that in all schools? Or just the middle school, high school?
Just middle school and high school. And one other request was we have and I will refer to Superintendent Riley, but we have a full-time counselor who works on substance abuse policies and other things at the high school and does very limited part-time work at the middle school.
Correct. So we would like...
It would be helpful to get funding to have, it's painful to say, but hopefully if we had somebody at the middle school on a full-time basis, it would help alleviate kids from starting drugs as well.
We'd like to push our efforts, our prevention efforts, down to the middle school, because I think that's where we would see the most benefit, but we can't take them out of the high school. And right now, our person is split, and we'd like to have a person 3 days at the middle school. But we need to have that funding support through which agency is it?
EDHD.
Right. Thank you.
Our statistics from studies that have been done by Ray Davies and our Prevention Coalition have shown that, unfortunately, kids are starting as early as 5th, 6th, and 7th grade.
Okay. So then our second will be echoing what the town council said about continuing contracts, and we would request that that you all oppose those if that comes back to the floor, and that would include a statewide teacher contract and binding arbitration, and let us work with our unions as we have. We appreciate our employees, and we want the opportunity to negotiate with them as we faithfully do, but not be pushed into that by what's happening in other communities, which it seemed like that was. You want to?
Yeah, this is, I think, really a unanimous area of concern for the school committee, in particular that we do not have solutions for one district or one community mandated at the state level, which then the effects are felt in districts which there isn't a problem. While I agree issues like anti-bullying, social media, policies, and we have those statewide, it's a good thing to have statewide. I personally would be very cautious about any statewide mandate that would impose either additional costs or burdens or maybe create problems for us where none exist. So I think we reached out to all the legislators with some impact, maybe a little bit, others not so much last session, and would just reiterate we would like local control.
And our third priority, but not really a third, just one of three, is we would encourage efforts to expedite the road diet on East Main Road. We just had our third bus accident in this past week, and East Main Road is a problem.
Not the bus driver's
yes,
fault.
None were the bus driver's faults, but and this one just happened right off of East Main Road at the intersection of Union and East Main Road. But East Main Road is a problem, and Mr. Shears did a little bit of studying, going out with our buses are actually, if you include the mirrors, are actually wider than the road. So it's, causes a dangerous...
Yes. Situation, I have a list of about 7 or 8 locations in the town that really need infrastructure work. Some of them are state with Route 114, 138. Some may be able to be handled locally and some may be handled very quickly, maybe even on areas within the town themselves, looking at them and addressing them on a maintenance type of issue. But certainly, it's a situation, we all live here, and you get kind of complacent in the way that you travel up and down the roads, and the roads, unless you really focus on it, because that's what you have to drive on every day till an incident occurs. And then when it does, you take a deeper look at it. And so some of my thoughts really would be that if the state right now, I don't think it's a secret, is focused primarily on financing road construction, bridges, whatnot, around Providence, Warwick, Cranston, the more heavily populated areas. And unless we do something, and I quite frankly sometimes get tired of just sending things or talking about them and making a list and not having things happen. So at some point, it's not going to be just a situation of if this happens, it's just going to be when, because the way that last thought, when you go away from the area and you come back to Portsmouth and are driving on the roads, I'm sure more often than not somebody will say, gee, these are the worst roads, are the narrowest or with the poles closer to the road than anywhere else where I was driving. And so some of these situations really need to be addressed right away. Thank you.
I had two questions. One, I don't know if it's the state's intention to provide additional road dieting with the remaining construction. So I just don't know the answer to that question. But I'd also be interested in asking the chief how he feels about extending road dieting. I'm talking specifically about East Main Road, because I think it's the most dangerous of the two parallel roads.
Well, so to answer your question on the funding, I believe, and I could have the year off, but I believe 2021 East Main Road is scheduled to be repaved.
So it's scheduled to be what?
Repaved.
Right, repaved, but not
road dieted. No. What I mean really should happen is the pole should be pushed back about 10 feet, and it should be widened out to 10 feet, and I'll leave that on to my engineer over here, but that's a lot of money.
But in lieu of that, in lieu of any improvement to the widening of the roads, I would just be curious as to how you feel from your experience, your accident reports, your observations, if road dieting is something that you would favor.
Well, I was at an accident that was barely almost a double fatal last week on East Main Road. I absolutely support the road diet on East Main Road. The last 3 police chiefs have also. I've written the letters in the past up to the State Traffic Commission to ask for it. I know they did a study maybe 10 or 12 years ago, Keith, and you have to fill me in exactly when it was, but they did look at it before, and I think there was too much volume on the road, and it didn't fit their criteria. But if you look at Medicom Am over in Bristol, they put one through there. They've done it other places. Repave it and do it here and help our citizens out.
Unfortunately, Medicom, they only did it on sections.
They did it on sections, yeah.
But we've done
it on a section 2, if you think of it, back from Clements.
There was a ton of concern when the discussion was happening, 6 years ago now, about the section from Clements to Boyd's Lane, about doing it and sideswipe accidents and all kinds of, and that just hasn't come to pass.
I mean, as you well know, there are occasions when you're on East Main Road and the vehicle to your right or to your left is overlapping the other lane just by sheer size. So there's no way to navigate around it. If you're on the outside lane, you may choose to go into the oncoming lane and, naturally without oncoming traffic, hopefully, but, it's still pretty risky.
Pass a large truck, everyone does it.
Right.
Yeah.
You're crossing over.
Yeah, I guess I would ask our legislators, who do we talk to about this? What can you do to help us? Because, you're hearing our police chief, the town council, the school committee, it's on our agenda tomorrow. There is very significant concern about safety on East Main Road. So what can you do to help us?
If you contact RIDOT, if you get a resolution from both the school committee and the town council, a letter from your chief, all that would provide ammunition for us when we go to RIDOT and discuss your issue.
Ms. Pedro?
I wholeheartedly support this. I always have supported the road diet. I travel East Main Road twice a day, every single day, and it's very dangerous. Three things. The town center project, that was calling for rotaries and roundabouts, rather. Sorry. Sorry, roundabouts. And the median down the middle. And I really think that every time I go up that road, that stretch, I think to myself, no one's ever going to make a left-hand turn and go to these businesses. You know, no, if you have a median in the middle, but a road diet would help that. And it would also slow down traffic. And I also noticed that, speaking of the plowing, I know our fine DPW did a great job, but the DOT took out so many mailboxes on 138, 114, and Park Avenue. I can't even believe how many mailboxes, because they got right up to the curb and they just took out mailboxes. It's too close. And the road diet would help that. So, and I don't know what they're going to do about the mailboxes.
Well, it's
I don't drive East Main Road a lot, but every time I do, I find someone who's out in the left-hand lane and they stay there. And if you're going to pass them on the right and take the ruts all the way home, it's not a good scenario.
It's much, much better than thinking about widening the road, where now you're going to have to take people's property, and it's a huge expense. It's just so much more effective and cost-effective to do the road diets.
Well, that would be you wouldn't be taking anybody's property to widen the road on East Main Road.
Well, you got to move those poles.
You got to move that's the expensive part. But in terms of the road diet, they're still going to knock over the mailboxes. It's still going to go curb to curb. So the diet's not going to help the mailboxes.
They do move the line.
They move the line out, but they're still going to plow curb to curb. So they'll still take out. And they took them out on East Main Road. I don't know if they took out Mr. Kessin's mailbox, but they did.
They took out mine, brand new. They missed everyone. They got everyone from Boyd's Lane to Clements Market except one.
So.
But they don't.
No.
They don't have to go curb to curb.
They really need to plow curb to curb, because the way that the drainage infrastructure is, it has to go from curb to curb. Fortunately, I've gained 3 drains in front of my house to try to get rid of the water that happens there.
That cost you a mailbox.
It's cost me a mailbox, and it just cost me a brand new one. This road diet thing, and I think is a second order effect that maybe you can help from the state, when in fact we have poles knocked down like we did during the last hurricane. I don't know whether it was Bob. We lost 37 poles on East Main Road from the Christmas Tree Center to almost the Portsmouth line. Why isn't National Grid burying those cables to ensure that this, when they have this catastrophe, that they just bury this service? Then you can use the right-of-ways you have.
You can ask National Grid, but I do know from my industry it's extremely expensive.
It's twofold from me talking to National Grid. It's A, the cost, and B, linemen would rather be up on a pole than down in the ground.
Once you put it in the ground, it's going to stay there. It's going to be fine.
National Grid's not the only one with poles.
Yeah.
Well, I know that.
And then the flip side is
Verizon owns them on the island.
As there's a power outage, they can drive down the street and see the line down, as opposed to trying to figure out where under the ground it's shorted. That's the 3 things that I've been told from National Grid. Anybody else on the road diet and safety? And I'll pass it back. There's a couple other ongoing issues here that the school committee would like to keep your attention on.
Yes, basically just protect our sources of funding. We don't have any specific, if everything stays as is, but special ed is always a concern. So funding for kids with extreme disabilities in terms of special ed needs, and just making sure that the funding formula is fully funded so that our reductions are minimized. And knock on wood, charter schools are not really a problem in Portsmouth, but limiting the amount of funding provided to charter schools that comes out of, that would have a negative effect from district budgets. And then on the infrastructure, making sure that 80 million, because I think when we submit our next 5-year plan, we're not anticipating to having ones and twos, because our buildings are warm, safe, and dry, but we want to continue with the modernization of our buildings. And so that's where we come to what President Hamilton was talking about. We don't want to be hurt by seeing the state only funding ones and twos, because we've completed our ones and twos. So we're going to be looking for more, reimbursement on projects to modernize our buildings and bring them up to 21st century standards.
I just have a comment with regard to the legislation, state legislature. On these, some of these school districts, Warwick, for example, have considerable overcapacity with all of the different school buildings that they have. And I don't know if Pawtucket and Providence, I think they are. I think they're similar. And it seems to me, I think they're getting at it in a fashion with this proposal for the bond issues, but there ought to be a significant incentive, it seems to me, to force the consolidation. I know in Warwick, one of the problems they have is the teacher-student ratio, I think, is something like 20 students. It's less than us. And so it becomes a union problem when you consider closing a school. But we know fundamentally it's a problem, period, just with respect to parents and just like we had in Portsmouth with Elmhurst. But we don't want to reward inefficiency, I guess is my point. If Warwick and Pawtucket and Providence and whatever other communities have significant overcapacity, they shouldn't be rewarded for remodeling a school that really isn't necessary if they were more efficient about, like Newport did, eliminating all the elementary schools and building a new one. Granted, they needed more capacity, but
it's too small.
Yeah. They under-budgeted that.
I attended the first session where they were rolling out at Rogers High School the plan, and General Treasurer Magazino made it a point in that forum to say that they were going to look at some of those communities and force them to make some of those hard decisions to try to reduce some of the school properties just to make it work. So the General Treasurer is on record saying that, so I think they are looking at it to try to make sure that there's efficiencies with this new program, because it's going to be quite expensive to Rhode Island.
I bet he hasn't taught the teachers union yet.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly. Well, that comment I made about the teacher-student ratio is a big issue. I mean, we have, 23? Our classroom capacity is 23.
It varies.
Right, but roughly 23. It's more. My understanding is it's 20. So when you try to consolidate the schools, you're going to have classrooms of, larger numbers than that. As President Hamilton says, it becomes a huge union negotiation. And Warwick doesn't need any more issues. So
certainly not with their unions now. One other thing that it's somewhat sprinkled in here in terms of protecting the school funding formula is I think it's gotten better, but part of the funding formula was that the money was going to follow the child. And when we're bringing in kids to group homes, we need to make sure that funding is following that child to support the education that we're giving to kids from other communities. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but it has gotten a little bit better, but it could still be better?
It was increased this year, yes.
Okay. And security, yes, I guess we have that, yes. Support funding for safety and security improvements, because that's another thing we're addressing in our buildings. And is there a specific, if it's not part of our 5-year plan and we want to do safety right now, is there a mechanism for us to even get reimbursement, Chris?
It's not part of the 5-year plan.
Right.
Which it can be included.
Right. So the work we're doing right now is not in our 5-year plan, right? So, I think we would advocate if there was, a safety concern identified, that there be another mechanism that we could put in for reimbursement. think that's...
Anybody on the
else?
council or the school committee have any comments, questions? You want to elaborate on anything? If not, I'll give our three legislators, if you guys want to let us know what you're working on. Some of the stuff that has and has not hit the papers. I know, Mr. Sevigny, I did see the ban of bump stocks, which I fully support. There's no need to have those awful things that killed so many people down in Vegas. What else are you folks working on?
Well, the number one thing on my list is the substance abuse stuff. And, we're working on that. The bills are being reintroduced. I think the entire prevention community has lined up their resources behind this stuff. There's not a lot of money, but there's probably something close to $1 million per year just in rule violations and a $30 fee that is supposed to be collected and sent to the HDDH for prevention. I mean, we're in a bad spot as a state right now because all the prevention money is coming from the federal grants. And when you apply for next year's grant, they ask you, where's the maintenance of effort related to state monies? And we've got a pretty bad story on that. So this has to get fixed, and I think it'll get through this year. That's not nearly enough. Certainly, the money you spend on prevention is much more efficient and effective. So I do believe that every school, middle school and high school in the state should have a student assistance counselor. And one of the big risks that we run as a state right now is that the prevention coalitions are very severely underfunded. And this was done purposefully with the contracts that were let last year to establish the regions. There was not enough money to support them, certainly not the professional cadre of people that sit with the volunteers and provide the technical content of the organization and stuff. And that has to get fixed, or we're going to start losing people out of the prevention community that will, be replaceable in terms of qualifications and experience. That's my number one.
More importantly on that is we'll start losing more people.
Well,
lives. That's the most important thing.
By the way, I believe there were 8 overdoses in Portsmouth so far.
2017.
So, like you said, that's 8.
That's a lot.
That's 8 fatal.
Yeah, I was going to say.
8 fatal.
More than
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of Narcan uses, I think, between you and the fire department.
Is there a need for more beds? I was asking the chief a couple months ago about whether he could implement something that like was done in Gloucester, Mass, where if somebody had a problem and presented themselves to the police department, I think in Gloucester they can refer them right to treatment, but I don't think that avenue is open to Chief Lee because he has no place to send them.
Well, not directly. I mean, the city of Providence is doing something with the fire department down that path. But what did change in the past years, there was a law that was passed that makes it easier for a police officer to bring someone who is intoxicated one way to a hospital and make sure that they are properly taken care of without the legal stuff that surrounds that. To some degree, officers were constrained in what they could do or not do with a person. It wasn't like they could just drive up in the patrol car and drop the guy off in the emergency room. We've tried to fix some of the law related to that so that they can do that, and it doesn't tie up the policeman and take them off the road for the rest of the shift.
Right.
That kind of thing. So we're making inroads, and I think we probably have to wait a while, but we're going to see how the city of Providence makes out with the fire department, because they have opened up their fire station so that if somebody, is under duress from, whatever substance, they will take them in and take care of them. at least until more formal help can be provided.
This is a quick related thing. I believe, I don't remember whether it was this meeting last year or some other meeting that, I think it was you, Chief, that mentioned the funding for Narcone, that you don't get funding, the fire department does get funding. Is that coming from the state?
We don't get funding from the state for Narcan. I think some of the 70s, wherever that, and it's looking at that now. The fire departments, fire chiefs here, they can get theirs, they use it and get...
When we use it on an emergency call, when we go to the hospital, we get it replaced. So, and I think the chief and I, we talked briefly about trying to set up some type of mechanism where we can try and replace the police department until it's coming close to expiration through the hospital as well. We're sort of in the early stages of that.
So we're spending thousands of dollars a year that people don't realize paying for this, and we've gotten zero help from funding.
So if the fire department utilizes it on somebody and they have, theoretically, they have health insurance, you can get it reimbursed through the health insurance, but if you utilize it, you can't send it through their health insurance?
Correct.
Okay. That might be something that could be straightened out pretty easily with the state.
There's a couple of initiatives related to the accessibility of Narcan and all of that, and that's going to come up before the Governor's Commission on Behavioral Health.
Okay.
Mr. President, I just wanted to follow up on the school bus safety issue. What's the chances of Dennis Canaria's bill being passed this year?
Which one?
The one talking about the seatbelts.
We'll work on it. A lot of the cities and towns not forced to return it, but a lot of the cities and towns, we had some pushback from them saying it was another unfunded state mandate. So,
well, right now we have open season on our school buses here. Apparently, people are counting them up.
But if there were mandated seat belts, none of us owned the buses. It would be phased in as the transportation companies purchase new buses. It wouldn't be put them in tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's the plan as it stands.
Okay. Okay.
If I pass it, you can get my law passed. Outside of some of the, more newsworthy components, whether it's the deficit and Hawsox funding, stadium funding, and the like, focus on a couple of the bills that are good government and good consumer protection pieces, whether it's signing on board with the Inspector General, which is being led really by a couple folks, including Ray Burberg here, who's trying to do as much as he can to try to get the Inspector General on board here in the state. Also, I looked at some legislation and I've signed on board with the line item veto, another should be a good government piece of legislation. I have a piece of legislation that's in the Legislative Council that would protect the consumers from having to pay a fee to freeze and thaw their credit. As people may know that you have to, the credit agencies collect this information about you, the three major credit agencies, and then when you want to open an account, the organization then pulls your credit history from there. That data is stored. You have no control over that data that's being stored. And the only way to really protect your identity from being stolen is to have the ability to freeze your credit. And that would mean that anytime that you wanted to open up an account or have a loan, then you would have to go ahead and thaw out your credit for a set period of time. And depending on who the lender is, you may have to thaw out all three. Well, there's a fee that's associated with that. And then when you want to, so you would thaw it out, you could set it for a set period, a few days, or for a specific transaction. In the state of Rhode Island, we allow those credit agencies to charge a fee. And something is as simple as they can still collect information on you, they sell it to organizations, but at least you have the ability to say when you want it exposed to potential identity theft. And we all know that's a big issue. One of the biggest agencies or bureaus, credit bureaus,
Equifax. I mean, they got hacked and 143 million people's critical information was exposed to the potential identity theft. If you, as a consumer, they have that, they have a right to protect that. But you as a consumer, you should have the ability to say when somebody looks at it and for how long they look at it and not be charged a fee because they're making money off of that information.
Good. Thank you, sir. Representative Everett.
Thank you. The longer I'm up there, the shorter I find the season to go. So I'm not going to be introducing a whole lot of new legislation this year. I have legislation that deals with surveillance. We have all these gantries going up, and right now there's no control over the information that is gathered by them. I've been working with my counterpart on the Republican side for that as well. And the budget. We said it in the paper, we said it all along, the budget is critical. What I found last year is that those without a voice are the ones that they go after the most. So we're going to protect those people, we're going to protect the hospitals. The governor's seen it up attention, we're going after the hospitals for fees. And if we continue to do that, we're not going to have hospitals except for Rhode Island. So those will be the big areas of concern for me this year.
Well, one easy fix on the surveillance, don't put the gantries up.
Right.
Well, you already have gantries up, and they already collect information.
Understood. Car tax. Is that going to...
We made a very strong commitment last year. 5-year program. We anticipate seeing an increase again this year.
Can we look at the way it's being rolled out? Because it's, again, not fairly stretched across communities. Portsmouth is being penalized for it as opposed to other communities who have higher taxes.
As is typical.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to make it as simple as this, but it's as simple as this. You had X million dollars a year, you spread it between each town, and I'll say you had $39 million a year, each town gets $1 million until their car tax is gone.
Not quite as simple as that.
Understood, but the formula that they have is not working for the town of Portsmouth and our citizens. And it's our job to sit up here and fight for that with those citizens. So,
as it is always.
Anything else? Any follow-up? Gentlemen, I thank you. Good luck over the next 6 months, or 5.5. I'm sure since it's election year, you'll be done by the 18th or 19th this year of June. We appreciate it. Next up, we are going to have a discussion on the FY19 school department and town budgets. Mr. Menke has the flu, so we made him stay home so that he doesn't pass it along to any of us. And Mr. Rayner will roll through this for us, along with Chris from the school department.
She's bringing my copies.
Thank you.
I got one. I'm good. A new?
Is it the one that's up on the website? Okay, send them like that. I don't like killing trees.
I have on the website. The website's good.
I'll go with this one for now.
Mr. Rayner.
Good evening, Mr. President, School Committee Chair, counselors, committee members, ladies and gentlemen. As we get ready to kick off the FY19 budget season, we'll start with just presenting to you tonight what we believe are the drivers in the budget this year. Bottom line up front, we don't anticipate major changes to this budget over last year. So there aren't a whole lot of changes to brief. So we will just concentrate on the drivers. Next slide, please. There you go. This will kind of be our index as we go through the brief. We'll talk about, both on the town and the school side, high-level revenue issues, expenditure issues, capital, and technology. And I believe technology, we'll do technology first and then capital, I believe. Next slide, please. Okay, with regard to revenue, big changes here. On the town side, the town council has voted to remove the Prudence Island Transfer Station from the enterprise fund, so the Prudence Island Transfer Station will now be supported through the general fund. In addition, you made a decision that all the
transfer station stickers that are sold to Prudence Island residents, that revenue will go into the general fund. That won't offset all the costs associated with the transfer fund, but obviously that will help. So we're looking, that's about if I remember correctly, about $120,000 operation. We just touched upon it. If legislation remains in place, the number of taxable vehicles in Portsmouth will drop by 16.5%. The state has pledged to make municipalities whole, so this could represent a 15% decrease in the car tax levy. Now, if we're made whole, that represents reimbursement by the state in the amount of about $334,000. Chris?
On the school side, President Hamilton, you mentioned this earlier, it's year 8 of the 10-year implementation of the state funding formula. So the year we're in right now, the winners, this is their last year, so they don't win next year, but we keep losing for 3 more years. Next year will be year 8. Right now, the state is telling us that we should project a $172,000 reduction next year, so that's what we're starting off with. Obviously, that can go up or down, but that's their projection. Good news on tuitions, our Little Compton agreement. There are a big class coming in 9th grade next year, so we'll see an increase in our tuitions there. And plus, there's been a lot of work done by the district to promote our 3 CTE programs, Child Development, TV Production, and Engineering, and we're now tuitioning students in from other districts there. So about $100,000 all in, all that for tuitions.
I have a question. In this current year budget that just passed, I think the schools were paid $202,000 more than you originally projected.
I don't believe that is true.
Are you mean in
in FY18?
No, 17. The one we just went past.
The one that's current being audited?
The one that's being audited?
No, there was some additional money that came late in the legislative process where they did increase the housing aid. I'm sorry, not the housing aid, the group home aid.
I thought it was both the housing aid and the library fund got it. I think those two numbers come out to $274,000.
If it's housing
between
aid,
the school between the school and the library.
Yeah, if it's school housing aid, that goes to the town. That does not come to us. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I can't comment on that.
Okay.
Next slide, please. With regard to expenditure drivers, on the town side, we're looking at salaries to grow at a projected rate of 2 to 2.5%, depending on the contract. This includes raises, step movement, and staffing changes. We share the same policy. Premiums are expected to increase up to anywhere from 2 to 5%, 5 being very high, probably closer to the middle somewhere. With regard to OPEB, our pay-as-you-go expense is projected to increase about $90,000 as the number of future retirees increase, but that, of course, is a plan. We'll have more retirees in the plan as people drop off in the out years. And then retirement, we're looking at an increase in the pension ARC of about $32,000, less than 10%, and that's based on the actuary report.
Schools are primarily driven by staffing costs, about 70% of our costs. Salaries for next year we're projecting to be up about 1 to 2%. That's net. That includes raises, step movement, and any staffing changes. Also, our health premiums, anywhere from 2 to 5% is what we're hearing from the trust. Our OPEB pay-as-you-go expense is going down about 35% next year. It should be about $100,000 from about $165,000 this year. As you know, we move our retirees to Medicare when they turn 65, and the recent changes in the pension plan for teachers is causing them to retire a lot later than they used to. And then on the retirement side, we're looking at about a $6,000 increase in the ARC on the town pension, and then obviously our certified staff are part of the state pension, and the state has increased the funding ratio a little bit next year.
Quick question. Do we have a ballpark idea, student population, roughly the same? Up, down?
Our NASDAQ projection has us going down about 80 students next year.
20 to 30 per year is where we usually fall.
Oh, between transfers in and transfers out, so yeah. So, and remember, not all at one grade level, so that's
Understood.
tricky for us, so 20 kids spread across.
I just read an article about, I think Barrington is experiencing a higher influx in the next few years, and they don't...
They're one of the few communities in the state right now that are seeing an increase in student population.
So Newport built that elementary school based on NESDEC projections as well, so...
Yeah.
And NESDEC has projected us declining every year, and we've had a couple extra, and we've had level years, so...
Understood. Just a question. Thank you, sir.
With regard to debt service, is projected to rise about 17.5%, from about 2.4 million to about 2.9 million. As briefed over the last 2 years, the debt is on track to be reduced by an overall 30% by FY22. The driver this year is we're beginning to pay off the police bond.
Well, we're going to make our first payment on the police bond. We're not going to pay it off. Unless you have a $10 million rabbit in your pocket.
With regard to expenditures other, on the town side, we have 2 contracts still being negotiated with the police and DPW unions. Those are not final yet.
And on the school side, our non-certified staff contract ends at the end of June, so that's a big unknown for us that we're starting to negotiate, and we'll have to make assumptions for our budget.
Good news, we do continue to look for areas of cooperation and collaboration between the school and the town, looking for shared efficiencies. Over the last year and continuing through next fiscal year, we will continue to share the outsourced facilities management resource officer, Aramark. We have hired a shared human resource director. We have combined the technology departments, and we continue to fund the SROs, one of which is through a grant. This year, like I said, we have combined the technology departments. They've done an assessment of our needs. We will be looking in the next fiscal year to upgrade our servers, our backup and replication hardware, and some of the software associated with those servers.
And on the school side, we continue to focus on our network, maintaining that, upgrading that, particularly wireless access, our laptop and computer refresh, our copier replacement, and we will continue our student one-to-one device rollout process next year. So that'll give us 3 grades now?
It'll actually be 4.
4 grades? Yeah. So the first class of freshmen coming into the high school are going to have a computer on one-to-one?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, with regard to our capital plan, divided this among 4 main categories. And as discussed last year, these are the projected capital improvement projects that will continue from last year into next fiscal year, or will begin to start, or will be started this year. We're looking at starting to replace some town hall furniture. The LED will continue the LED street lighting program. There is a request for a new scanner in the canvassing department. The big driver in DPW, we will increase the road paving budget by $50,000 to get it back up to the target million. There is a request for playground safety items. We will continue town hall repairs. We will continue the time sign replacement program. We will continue the replacement and repair of the Glen stable cupolas. We will continue the backflow testing and replacement program. There are some fire code upgrades required at the senior center specifically. We need to start investigating a sprinkler system. We will begin stone wall repairs in Linden Lane. We will continue with the fleet improvement program, and we will start the upgrades to the Triple S fields. On the fire side, we'll be looking at a fire boat replacement program. We will continue funding the fire marshal vehicle and then on the police side, we'll continue their fleet improvement program, the procurement of the rest of the bulletproof vests, walkie-talkies, and police station furniture for the new police station.
In terms of the town signs, if there are businesses within the town of Portsmouth who would like to advertise and pay for those signs, please contact Mr. Rayner. So when you're entering the town of Portsmouth, wouldn't it be great if it says entering the town of Portsmouth, come visit us at Clements Marketplace, let's say? Or any other town?
How much?
The total cost for the 4 signs is about $22,000.
Yeah, we just...
Each one is a little bit different.
We opened the RFP Friday. I haven't seen it, but we had projected $1,000.
Sure.
That was for the 4 Route 24, 138, 114, and coming down
Mount Hope.
River.
Maybe the Melville Partners would like to sponsor the one from Mount Hope. Newport Auto Museum. There you go. There's another one. Perfect. See? Now we've got 4 done.
Newport Auto Museum in Portsmouth.
In Portsmouth. So now we just need 1 more.
As far as capital in the schools, you're going to see our 5-year plan again. We're in year 4. It's been moving along quickly. I think there's good support. We're going to be discussing it with our full school committee, but at our capital planning subcommittee, there's been what I believe to be support to try to combine year 4 and 5 together, complete all of those projects in 1 year, complete our 5-year plan early, and for the school department to potentially fund that 5th year's projects with their fund surplus. We'd also be looking for year 2 of our 3-year safety and security capital plan, and we would be beginning our new 5-year capital plan process, which takes about a year, and we would hope to get approval in May of 2020 on that.
So that concludes our brief. Those are the drivers for the budget. Again, I'll emphasize that right now we don't project any major changes over the last year's budgets. You saw our 5-year capital improvement plan. We will continue that project this year. So if there are any further questions, that concludes our brief.
My only, not question, request, I don't want to say demand, but we keep the tax rate increase as low as possible. Stick around that 2% mark. As best we can. I'd rather see 0, but unfortunately, with the limited funding coming from our friends at the state, it becomes more and more difficult. So, anybody else have questions, comments on the budget initial overview?
What is the bidding process for the fireboat?
We haven't started that yet. That was put into the 5-year capital plan. I believe, I don't have it in front of me, I believe that was strategized to be a 10-year lease.
Which one are we replacing? The main boat or the whaler?
The main boat.
Okay.
Is there any special consideration given to Rhode Island boat builders for that?
I haven't crafted the RFP yet, but I hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you, gentlemen, both. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Why don't we, the school committee is, I guess, going to leave us, unless you guys want to hang out for the rest of the meeting. Why don't we take a 5-minute quick recess? We'll readjust here, and we'll start right back up again with the regular council agenda. Yes. Back into session here. Thank you for that brief recess there. Next up, we have our consent agenda. We have bills from 12/14 and 12/28. Do we have any questions on the bills? If not, I have a motion to receive and place on file.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I need to recuse myself on this one.
Okay. On both?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just do both.
Okay. Just fill out the paperwork with the clerk. So the motion passes 6-0 and 1 abstention/recusal for Mr. Kessin. Next, We'll be sitting as
My son's business that he's being paid at is in this bill set, so I can't vote.
Okay. So sitting as the Board of License Commissioners, we have 2 public hearings this evening. We're going to start the first public hearing for a liquor license application for a Class BV liquor license. Yulin Zhang doing business, did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay. Doing business as Wild Ginger Asian Cuisine at 2984 East Main Road. For those old people in the room like myself, that is the old Kaufman's Hardware. Does anybody want to speak on behalf or against allowing a Class BV license at 2984 East Main Road? I will ask 3 times. Any objections, any questions or comments? Going once, twice, third. Any questions or comments for allowing a liquor license? Hearing none, I will ask that we close the public hearing for Wild Ginger Asian Cuisine. Do I have a motion to?
Motion to close debate. Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Council comments on approving a liquor license, Class BV, for Wild Ginger Asian Cuisine.
I have one question. We're within the distance we need to be from school property?
200 feet?
I don't know what the number is. I didn't get a chance to look at the ordinance.
250?
Yeah, we're
200. Is it 200 feet from the back of the property to the school? It's probably right about 200 feet, right?
It's more.
It's more than 200?
More.
I can trust you.
What were your hours of operation? What's that? Your
Hours of operation.
You could put 11 to 11.
If we can make it contingent, if you want to go out and measure to make sure. We can have Brian measure it maybe tomorrow, unless you have a 250-foot measuring tape, Chief. Okay. If you can confirm that for us, Gary, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Because your property ends, you own the parking lot behind Kaufman's as well? No? Oh, so you're just doing the old hardware store in the lot in front? Okay. Right.
I don't know what the setback is behind the building. I don't think it's very much to the property line.
No, it's just 5 or 6 feet. Yeah. Okay. So we can make, Mr. Gavin, we can make the approval contingent on the fact that it's outside of the 200-foot.
Correct.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay. Any further discussion? So the motion is to approve the license once the confirmation is done by Mr. Crosby that the distance between you and the school property is more than 200 feet. I don't think that's an issue. It seems like it's much more than 200 feet, but all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Good luck, and we look forward to some good food. Thank you. Next up, we have a second public hearing. This is for a permanent expansion area. The request for the permanent expansion of the service area of Tremblay's Bar and Grill Incorporated, doing business as Tremblay's Bar and Grill. 514 Park Avenue. Mr. Mike McFarland, present to allow year-round outdoor seating on the sidewalk. Wouldn't have been very good the past couple of weeks. Approximately 40 feet in front of the awning, projected out 8 feet from the building, comprising about 320 square feet. This would be the area in between the 2 entrance doors to Tremblay's on the right and left, right underneath the awning there that you see on the picture. So I will open the public hearing. If there's anybody who wants to comment from the public, either for or against, please come up to the podium. Secondly, anybody who wants to make a comment? Mr. Vitt? Thank you for not having to make me ask a third time with nobody coming up.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the official greeter for the Portsmouth Business Association, Tremblay's is a member of the Business Association, and I just think this is a great opportunity for Island Park. I think Mr. McFarland has shown such responsibility in cleaning the place up and just improving Tremblay's Island Park Cafe, and I fully support what we can do in Island Park to bring more business to the park. Thank you.
Right, before you leave, I'm going to do a quick sidebar, and I'm going to thank you for setting up a polar dive for some crazy people to go in the water and raising over $4,600 for Hannah Wharton. I think you should be commended, and I appreciate your effort.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know too many other communities that, did the polar dive.
They do a
But I don't know
plunge.
too many other communities that put their area code and pallets on the beach and lit them on fire. So that's my big thing, and get away with it. You do that.
And appreciate the support of both the police and the fire departments for putting that on. And whoever the gentleman was who was standing out in the water in waders while everybody went in to fish anybody out that might have had an issue. No thanks. Last time, anybody else have any comments or concerns about expanding the service area for Trembley's Restaurant? Hearing none, I will have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Questions, comments from the council? Ms. Pedro?
Is there anyone here from?
I do not see Mike here. No,
He's
there
here.
he is.
Okay.
I didn't recognize without a ball cap.
Yeah, that's the problem. You have a ball cap on?
So, I was reading the zoning board minutes, and the property owner at 15 Cedar Avenue had asked about, he had some concerns regarding the location of the dumpster and the issues of smoking and noise. And I was looking at the map, and actually, I live in this area, so I'm very familiar with it. And I didn't realize that those dumpsters are actually not on the property,
On whose property?
on your property.
No, my dumpster's on my property, and the other dumpster's on the Beachcomber property.
All right.
The Beachcomber has an L-shaped lot.
Yep.
Makes a right-hand turn behind Trembley's to...
So, okay, so where's your dumpster then?
My dumpster's the one closest to Trembley's. Can I...
The one that the line's going through? Yeah, sure.
That's a car.
Oh, that's not a dumpster, that's a car. No, that's a car. So which one's your dumpster?
That's my dumpster.
Yeah.
That's the Beachcomber dumpster,
Oh, okay.
right there.
So, yeah, so
This
he's...
was the property.
Yeah, I know, I'm familiar with it, yeah.
So...
Okay,
those dump-
but you're just only going to have
Yeah, the seating
the
on
the side, so it's not going to create any more noise for the property owners back there?
No.
Okay.
Between the
I would ideally move that,
I was thinking,
but since that's not my property,
I see that now, so, okay, I realize that that's their dumpster, okay.
And then the
Right,
seating will be out front, not out back.
I understand that. Okay.
And even with the expansion, there's still 7 feet of sidewalk for people to get by, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further questions?
I've got one. Is there any kind of a border you're going to put because of people going to be there?
I haven't decided exactly. There's a lot of things we can do. I've looked at other small communities, towns, either wrought iron, I'm going to call it gating, roping, something that'll define the area of the dining space so it's clear and defined, so it's not a gray area. It'll be very black and white.
With signs that state no alcohol past this point and all that fun stuff.
Whatever codes are that need to be done, smoking, drinking, all that, yeah. But we'll make it clear and defined so there's no wishy-washy people kind of wandering too far from where they should be, for lack of better words.
Yes. It's not New Orleans. Can't go wandering down the street with a to-go cup.
No, not yet.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any questions? Comments? Do I have a motion to approve the expansion of the 320 square feet out on the sidewalk of the...
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Michael, thank you. Good luck, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, we have an annual renewal for a victualler's license. It should be annual new victualler's license for...
New England handmade donuts?
Yeah, exactly. New England handmade donuts. You guys are going to make me say this, aren't you? Okay. Rask Mylikalina, Dual Sake Kiev, doing business as New England Homemade Donuts, 3302 East Main Road. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have an annual renewal for peddler's license for Z Truck LLC, doing business as Z Food Truck at 56 Kingswood Road, Bristol, one vehicle.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We have an entertainment license for the annual Beast of the East Rugby Tournament for the Rhode Island Rugby Football Foundation Beast of the East Collegiate Rugby Tournament, held this year on April 14th and 15th at the Gardner 70 Complex.
Move to approve.
Is there a second discussion? Mr. Kessin.
This event is coordinated through the,
Recreation
Department?
Yeah, Wendy Bulk, yes.
Yep, thank you.
And I believe they hire a full-time broken bones and broken noses and bruises and everything else from the police and the fire department as well. So they have a full staff there. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Move to adjourn as the Board of License Commissioners.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We have minutes to approve from the Town Council meeting of 12/11/17.
Motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Rayner, Town Administrator's Report.
Good evening, Mr. President, Council, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to talk about the police building construction. Quick update. Milestones achieved since the last report. All the temporary utilities are now connected. All new building footings are in place, and new exterior walls are being formed and placed. We are still on budget with actual cash flow on track with projections for this stage of the project. Due to weather, the project is about 8 to 10 days behind schedule. However, the contractor has a plan to resequence some of the scheduled events to make up that time. Structural steel is still scheduled for delivery the week of February 26, and over the next 3 weeks, work will focus on forming and placing building walls, the subgrade interior and interior footings and drainage. A pay-as-you-throw update. Preparations to implement the pay-as-you-throw program are in full swing. Waste Zero has contacted 17 potential retailers in Portsmouth, Prudence, and Bristol. By January 18th, all stores signed on to the program should have their bags. Once retailers are established, we will publish a list that sticker holders can refer to when deciding where to purchase their bags. There have been several articles in our local newspapers, and additionally, we will start handing out flyers at the transfer station reminding and informing users how the program works and to start using the pay-as-you-throw bags come February 1st. Additionally, the Solid Waste and Recycling Coordinator is also holding 2 public information workshops this month. The first will be this Wednesday at 10:30 at the Senior Center. There are already in excess of 40 people signed up. And the second will be next Wednesday evening, January 17th, here in the Council Chamber at 6:30 p.m. The Solid Waste and Recycling Coordinator and our rep from Waste Zero have also been on the Portsmouth This Week program and will make a second appearance this month. Additionally, a public interest spot will also be produced this week to begin airing next week on Channel 18. Our website will also be updated this week, and press releases will be prepared for each week until the program is fully implemented. A quick report on the statewide community overdose engagement program. To continue addressing the challenges of the opioid overdose crisis in Rhode Island, the governor and the directors of the Rhode Island Department of Health and the director of Rhode Island Department of Behavioral Health Care, Developmental Disabilities and Hospitals sponsored Rhode Island's first Community Overdose Engagement Summit, and that was held on December 12th. Now, the event brought together various stakeholders from government, emergency services, law enforcement, and the prevention and pharmaceutical communities to better address the overdose crisis in our state. Our Fire Chief, Mike Cranston, and our Prevention Coalition Coordinator, Ray Davies, attended for Portsmouth. At the conference, it was announced that there is a grant available to communities of up to $5,000 for each community if they formally develop an overdose response plan. To qualify for that grant, it was required that we submit a letter of intent. Ray Davies has taken care of that, and he will ensure that we meet the requirements of the grant, i.e. that our plan has to be completed by May 25th. And then lastly, a quick word on our audit. The Hag Shahadi and Company have completed Portsmouth's single audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2017. The audit will be presented to the school and town finance departments tomorrow morning, after which we will send the audit report to the council and post it on our website. The auditing firm will present the audit to the town council at our next town council meeting on Monday, January 22nd. And, Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Rayner on any of those items, or anything else? Hearing none. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
What, yeah, I do have it.
Okay.
What did you say, the audit is completed and you're going to get it tomorrow morning?
Correct. It will be presented to the finance departments of both the school and the town tomorrow morning, and immediately thereafter we'll post it on the website and make it available to the council.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Resignations and appointments. We have resignations from the Quinnipiac Island Planning Commission for Mr. Phil Driscoll.
Motion to accept with regrets.
Seconded.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Old business. Newport County Chamber of Commerce Regional Economic Development Division update. Miss Erin Donovan Boyle, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very well. Happy New Year.
Thank you so much for inviting us here tonight to give an update on this really exciting initiative. Some of you may recall from 2013 when this initiative was kicked off with my predecessor, Jody Sullivan, and essentially the goal of this was to work on developing a regional economic development division with all of the municipalities throughout Newport County with private sector and philanthropical investment. So I'm happy to report that after a couple of years of convening meetings with the various stakeholders involved, we are able to announce the launching of this division. We're joined here tonight by Rich Overmoyer from Fourth Economy, who is the consultant firm that will give us an overview of what our goals are to actually implement this program and show some return on the investment for our stakeholders for this year one of activity. Just to remind you all, the mission of this organization is to build a world-class economy in Newport County and Bristol by retaining and recruiting high-value companies and jobs, supporting municipal economic development efforts, and aligning priorities with the private sector growth opportunities. The main programs that we will be implementing, particularly in year one, are with regard to a business retention and expansion program, so supporting our existing businesses, identifying what their needs are and how we can help them grow or expand within our own community. Develop statewide economic development interaction, so working with a liaison to the Commerce Corporation Department. Implement some business recruitment trips, conferences, trade shows, and target marketing strategies for talent pipeline, and then also for recognition of the tremendous opportunities that we have to offer here. Establish a web presence for site location source purposes and a dashboard for local demographic and economic development data and information, and establish a metric to measure all of the activity that takes place and be able to report out on a regular basis to all of our stakeholders. So with that, I'd like to introduce Rich to give his presentation about Fourth Economy and what we plan on doing and seeing for this year one, and happy to take questions after that.
Great. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Council. I know you've been here a long time already, so I'll try to be as brief as I need to be as we go through these. So my name is Rich Overmeyer. I'm CEO of Fourth Economy Consulting. This is the team that will be working on this project. Primarily, Chelsea Burkett there and Emily Brown are the two key people. As part of this, we are going to be putting a full-time person here in the community. So we're actually going to post that job probably tomorrow. And so within the next 2 months, we are slated to have a full-time staff person on the ground. So there'll be another happy face there to add to our roster. If you go to the next slide. So our firm, we've actually had experience in Rhode Island. We've been, about 5 years ago, we got hired for a project with the actually it was the Rhode Island Economic Development Corporation, and then we have continued to do work here with the Rhode Island Foundation, again, still with Commerce Corporation, with Polaris, with the Highlander Institute, Tech Collective, and a number of other organizations. So it speaks volumes, I think, hopefully to the work that we're going to be able to engage here, and that folks in this community continue to want to bring us back to help them with their strategy and actually implementation of the work that they're executing. So next slide. Yeah, so Aaron kind of covered some of this, so this just kind of gives you, and I think you have copies for later on. I think my purpose today was just to do a quick intro. I hope to have the opportunity to meet with you again, to hear from you as we kind of get up to speed on this process. But this is the things that we're going to be doing. There's a number of ways that we're going to be engaging, and so including doing some kind of survey work in the business community, some focus group work as we start hearing ideas to really try to understand what are some of the opportunities that are untapped here in the community, and what are some of the needs that companies are finding, both individually, but also common needs that we may be able to try to tackle together. Yeah, and as part of that, we'll be defining what success looks like over the 5-year term of this effort. Next slide. Yeah, business retention, expansion, and attraction. So it's a mouthful, right? But really what that means is really we're going to start calling on businesses and talking about their experience here in the community. What are the things that they think could help them grow? What are the barriers or challenges that they're seeing that they want some help with? A lot of times when you're having those kind of conversations, you start doing a lot of matchmaking between different corporations that could benefit from knowing each other and doing business together. Also some of the trade groups and other organizations. Rhode Island, for a smaller state, is blessed with a number of organizations that work statewide to try to help businesses grow. And over the years we've come in contact, we've worked with all of those groups. And so we're trying to really bring more of those resources here to the community to really accelerate the growth and really the success of the businesses here. Yeah, and then I think one of the things we'll also be doing is a database, working with the chamber in terms of how do we track all this information and track it by different communities. So it's one thing that we'll be working with Rich and the team as we have different companies that we're working with. We'll be able to pinpoint by location the kinds of things that they need and some of the resources that we're able to bring to bear for them. So next slide. And communications, we want to always, in our work, always transparent, so we're going to be launching a website. I think we've evolved. We're going to actually have a web page. We're working with some branding with the steering committee about what that will look like. But the idea is by the end of this month, we'll launch that resource and start to populate information on there. We'll also do a bi-monthly e-newsletter, something that we would love to get into the hands of your constituents, just talking about where the opportunities are, some of the success stories that we're seeing, and some of the, again, additional resources we're being identified. We are looking at coordinating some site selector events. This is a dual strategy, and one, obviously the local businesses that are here now are probably most important. They have the best capability of growing sooner rather than later. But also we know there's a lot of eyeballs on the island. With these kinds of events, you have a lot of people visiting that are not from here that may have an opportunity to invest in the future. And so we're going to work more at trying to leverage those tourism events to also be business events for the community. Yep, next slide. Yeah, and then the goal here, and what we'll be doing between now and September, is really defining how do we keep this effort moving forward. We know you've invested in this effort in the past, and we know others are contributing funds to support this effort, but we want to make sure we have a very diversified funding stream to support this. There's some different ways you can do that. Obviously support from other private donors that are not currently engaged, some of the partnership opportunities in the pursuit of grants. We've had a very successful track record here in the state, bringing in about $5 million in federal funding over the last couple of years for some of the groups we've worked with. But then also, again, project funding, specific projects that are looking for opportunities that can impact economic development. We'll have some capacity to be able to help support those projects through grant writing, through, connections and those kinds of things. And then finally, we're always going to be upfront about the return on investment. Everybody that is investing in this initiative, we're going to be clear about where we're making progress, where success is being made. And also, if we need to do course corrections, we're going to be honest about, where we're running into some barriers and want to have a conversation about that. And so finally, so this is the pitch, right? So, we want to collaborate with all the communities, with the leadership in every town. And so there's several ways that we can collaborate. One is identification of sort of what are your high-value companies here in Portsmouth that we'd want to talk to as we start that business calling program. Tell us about the companies that are driving the economy here, or you think that are opportunities that are sort of untapped or can do better if they had some support. Obviously, as we start developing those news items, being able to share that information, we would ask that when we get that in your hand, share it with your constituents. What are the business resources here in the community now that we want to make sure that we are populating on that platform so that folks throughout the region and in your community know about it? And then once we get into, over the next 2 months, once we get into discussions about priority sectors, just understanding, we've already heard, we've been on the ground for one whole day. We've had several meetings today. We're already hearing, there's certain preference in some communities of a type of business or a type of wage that they're looking for of a business to have in their community. So we want to hear from each community sort of what's that sweet spot of the type of company and the type of job that you're looking to grow. And then, you see also just the collaboration as we do those hopefully bring in site selectors for those events, figuring out how do you want to play a role with that. These are usually fun events that we try to put the best foot forward with the community in terms of what the investment opportunity is, and so we'll work with you to make sure that that happens. And then again, open discussion. We're an open book, so I have my contact information on the next slide. But as we're moving forward with this, we want to make sure that, again, the return on investment is there. So we want to hear what does success look like from this initiative for your community, both in this initial phase between now and September, but then again over that long term, looking at kind of a 5-year horizon. What does that success look like for you, and where will you be happy to see that this division is making its mark in the community? So that's my contact information in Chelsea. You can always reach one of us. I'm always connected to my cell phone and usually to email. So that's how to get a hold of me. And with that, I conclude my presentation.
Any questions for Rich? I can give you, for me, success would be more jobs in Portsmouth. That's plain and simple and pretty easy.
Yep.
When we start thinking about stakeholders, obviously there's 2 or 3 large companies in industry. You have Raytheon,
right,
which we want to make sure they continue to stay here in Portsmouth and possibly start growing instead of shrinking. Then you have our marine trade business down in Melville, which is covered somewhat under the Rhode Island Marine Trades Association, but even closer to the Melville Partners, talking with them. And then our small business community, which is represented by the Portsmouth Business Association.
Yep, great. Yeah, and Chelsea's actually with the marine trades folks right now, so we're already working that.
Ms. Ujifusa?
I guess I have questions relating to the fact that this presentation is very general.
Sure.
So could you give me some concrete examples of work you've done in the past and what exactly you are describing as rate of return? Or
Sure. I think our story in Rhode Island, again, it started with some economic development planning for the state. One of the things that we identified in that planning was an interest in bringing together the design industry and the manufacturing industry. And so that was a recommendation that we made, and it started gaining traction. And so then Commerce Corporation asked us to take it to the next level. And so what we ended up doing there was also bringing in the defense industry. And so it basically what was created as a result of that work was an initiative called Steam Engine USA. Now with the new administration, it's called the Innovation Center for Design and Manufacturing. But so we helped develop the plan, the strategy around that, and then raise that $4 million was to help sort of launch a series of programs. One of the most successful under that is a program that Polaris has been managing called a Design Readiness Assessment, where we actually built the capacity to go into defense-related companies to assess their capabilities in terms of advancing their business and taking in design as a way of sort of diversifying their product mix. To date, that program has generated, has helped 50 companies. They're they're actually tallying the results of that right now, the return on investment, but I can tell you it's at least tenfold what that initial investment. Those companies have generated revenue, sales, in excess of 10x what that original investment for that program was. So that's how we work. We go from strategy to implementation in most of our projects, and so we want to have a similar experience here with this program.
So you do grant writing, basically?
No, I mean, we do everything, we do all of it. So we're, from idea through implementation, our team and partners that we bring in can do all of it. So grant writing is an important part to take that step at some point from the idea to creating a strategy to get money to implement. So we do all of that. We can support all of it. And in this case, I mean, that's what we're going to hire a person on the ground here because it's important to have that person in the community full time. So on that implementation side here, we're going to have that person here on the ground. But yeah, we can help once we identify projects, once the overall initiative, we're going to help try to source funding, grants, other funding to support continued implementation of the effort. And I'm happy to tell you more about all we do. There's a lot.
Anyone else with questions for Rich?
Currently, you're funded from this $4 million that you've raised?
No, that's a separate. Sorry, not to confuse. That is a separate project that we had worked on with the state. Polaris is running that project now. This is a separate initiative that the chamber is.
Yes, so this was funded through all 6 municipalities, the Van Buren Foundation, and Bank Newport, for a total of $200,000.
And our funding was done in 2013 of $5,000, but you never
In
took
2013, it was $2,000?
$2,000, and then as this, because this initiative has taken so long, it became $5,000. So 2 years ago, we moved it to $5,000, but it's been sitting in the planner's budget all these years, and then now that we are off the ground, that $5,000 has been appropriated.
It's already in the budget, so you're not asking for money that doesn't exist.
Correct.
This is what the key is here. Okay. So we need an approval to allocate or to release the funds to the Chamber of Commerce to get this thing off the ground.
I think you had already done that in 2013, essentially, just waiting to do it.
I'm going to ask this council to reappropriate it. Even though the money exists in the budget, it's already sitting there, but I'm going to ask this council to reappropriate it. If somebody could make that motion.
It's not on the agenda. It's just an update.
Yeah, eventually, when we get to the budget.
Put on the next one. Just put it on the next one. It's already in the budget. It's money already approved. So we'll release it on the 22nd.
Excellent,
Sorry.
thank you. And we'd be happy to come back and give additional updates as we progress. And I would also say on January 31st is the Chamber's annual meeting where we will officially be launching this. Rich will be our keynote speaker. That's also just a great opportunity for local business leaders and community leaders to come to Ocean Cliff for a couple of cocktails and to learn about the progress that the Chamber has made overall over the course of the last year.
Mr. Kessler?
What's your funded ratio right now, private to public money?
Of all of the work that we've done?
This
project.
Oh,
this project.
Yeah.
Private funding was $30,000. Philanthropical was $100,000.
Public funding was $30,000. You got $5,000 from each community? Or
$25,000 from the city of Newport, $25,000 from the town of Middletown, $5,000 from the other 4 communities, yours included, $100 from Van Buren, and $30 from Bank Newport.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions?
Yeah,
Ms. Pedro?
I just have a comment. One of the, as you know, Newport is a huge tourism industry, and I've always thought that some of that tourism Portsmouth could benefit from that because we have so many historical sites that nobody knows about. Julia Ward Howe, the Historical Society, the Battle of Rhode Island was fought here with Glen Farm. So anyway, I just thought, well, we have to do some work as well on our historical sites, especially like Fort Butts. That's a huge. But I know that Kathy Abbas has been trying to get funding for doing some of that cleanup work for our sites. And anyway, I know there's a huge interest for people that go around the country looking for historical sites, and we have some of the oldest historical sites, I don't know, in the country. So anyway, that's funding for cleaning up some of our historical sites and maybe rolling that in with some of the tourism, promoting that.
Yeah,
Bringing some people in from Newport into Portsmouth.
Yeah, two of the meetings we already had today were around trying to better link those assets throughout the region, especially that history side. If you plot out, they said we should have an infographic of the island of like where all these sites are, to make it really easy for people to.
Yep, and it kind of goes along with our kind of in Portsmouth here. People sort of like the country. You know, we don't really want to like develop it hugely, so we want to use the assets that we have. You know, and those are some of our assets.
And that certainly is what makes the Finnick Island so special.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, pleasant to be here and look at and all of that. So thank you.
Anything else? Thank you guys very much. Thank you for sitting through and seeing how the sausage is made here. It was a little bit of time.
To listen to. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, folks.
Reach out. I'd love to talk to you more.
Absolutely. We look forward to the public discussions. New business number 3. In case you lost count, we had 1 and 2 earlier this evening. Discussion and action, request approval for proposed land transfer for the Common Fence Point Community Center and Common Fence Point Improvement Association. I added that part, it's not on the agenda. Mr. Crosby.
Yes, I think the map here tells the tale. Common Fence Point Improvement Association has been faced with the task of replacing their septic system. They want to, the only place they can really put it is in the back behind the building, and so they lose a great deal of valuable parking space to do so. They own you see those, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 properties there between them and the convenience store. The southernmost is owned by somebody else. Chuck Levesque, the Levesque family owns the one that's closest to the Improvement Association, and the town of Portsmouth owns that big sore thumb sticking up right in the middle of these properties. And so they came to us wanting to know if perhaps they could swap land with us for that property, or sell it to us, or what we could do to get the property into their hands. We came up with the idea that we would give them the property in exchange for free rent at the Improvement Association when we need to use it for a polling place. And so we proposed that to the Common Fence Point Improvement Association with the stipulation that they pay for all of whatever transfer fees are necessary. We have to talk with Kevin Gavin about the mechanics of making this happen, but that was the deal. And so we think it's a win. There's no real land around there that would be of any use to the town of Portsmouth, and this piece is certainly not so. And it's quite valuable to Common Fence Point Improvement Association, so we think it's a good idea.
Any questions for Mr. Crosby on this? It's about $300 each time we have is the rental, each time we do a polling place.
That's the agreement that we made, because I usually rent it for 2 days.
Okay.
So that I can do the setup, and it does interfere with the
Zumba classes and other stuff, yeah. So the request here is eventually we're going to have to sign a purchase and sale agreement or transfer agreement, not purchase and sale, whatever you're going to write up, Kevin. And
I don't know if we need to do a purchase and sale. We would do a deed in exchange. We'd do a separate, very simple agreement about
with an MOA outlining the agreement.
Yeah, we need something in writing for that. Okay. But it'll be a bargain and sale deed where we're not making.
And that would be something that I would have to end up signing.
Yes.
Okay. So what you need from the council is the approval.
Approval to the concept, or approval including they're going to pay for we're going to lock them in on paying for the cost of the deed transfer, correct? Yes. Other than that, it's
approve the transfer with the association to incur reimbursement for any expense, and authorize the president to sign.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
And Mrs. Jufusa, go ahead.
I just want to recognize Conley Zani and the other folks who might be here and support. The Common Fence Point Improvement Association has done amazing work out there, and this is certainly something we should support to continue the phenomenal progress that's been made out there, making it into a real community center. Sorry.
That's okay. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, folks. Good luck.
I would like to make a comment, too. It's been an absolute pleasure dealing with Conley and her people in making this all happen, so this is good.
It's great. Fantastic. Doing good things in Common Fence Point.
We like it. One more comment that during one of the last storms, a tree fell down on this particular property, and that's probably when we found out that it was somebody else's other than theirs. The town didn't know it was their own property.
Yeah, it's got a sordid history. It was
your little piece of land.
It was acquired by the town from non-payment of taxes, and somebody bought it in a tax sale, and they didn't pay their taxes, and it came back to the town. So it's just been sitting there as a treed lot for years. So
it looks like it would barely hold a mobile home. Probably all you could put there.
Yep. So, good luck. Thank you, guys. Next up, new business number 2, November update on the budget. Mr. Rainey, you're going to cover this for Mr. Menke if anybody has questions.
Yes, what you have before you is the budget update for November 2017. A quick correction, this update represents almost 41%, almost 42% of the fiscal year with nothing significant to report. Overall revenues are ahead at 45%, and expenditures are just below at 41% of projections. There are a few areas which we are monitoring. Finance-dependent expenditures are ahead at 65%, HR at 54%, but this is due to payment of bills early in the fiscal year. So this is just a timing issue, and it was already forecasted. Same with IT and Sandy Point. Sandy Point, we spend all that money during the summer, so it's just, of course, it's where it's at. IT, there were some IT procurements early, so that'll just even out for the rest of the year. But otherwise, nothing else to report.
Mr. Kessing.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I was hoping to ask Mr. Menke, but Mr. Rayner, the correction that we see between the actuals from 17 to 18, and the reason I ask is 17 we had a $500,000 deficit in revenue source. Has that been corrected?
I'm going to ask you to be a little more specific because I'm not sure what you're
referring to. There was within the town taxes for both, I think I saw real estate and property tax at the end of the year. We had $514,000 short in revenue in that one column.
You're looking at this report?
Yes, 17 versus 18.
And
and again, I think it's our prorated taxes are still at 43% in 17 versus 50.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So what I'm saying is those two numbers in our 17 year produced a $514,000 revenue shortfall. Has that, is it your feeling that that's been rectified?
No report has been made to me. It's not been a concern, but based on your comments tonight, I will make sure that this gets addressed at the next council meeting.
I would look at the percentages are just out of whack. It's the biggest thing.
Right, and that's what I'm looking at. Second thing is, I don't understand the second comment about IT is going to get addressed in the 19 cycle. I understand expenditures happen as they need to be paid. In my old town, 2 town managers ago, we couldn't make budget when we ended fiscal year on December 31st. We had anticipatory notes for salaries, hence we moved to this skewed year. So I'm wondering what that 69% will be addressed in the 19 budget. I mean, I don't understand what that concern is on this piece of paper.
So we have issues with our IT infrastructure, and it was addressed in the budget preliminary information of replacing servers.
Correct, and
So
I
we have to
understand that's
spend
either
money.
going to be a capital or something, but we're at 69 now, and I don't understand how fixing it in 19 is going to fix the budget for this year.
All he's referring to there is that when we consolidated the departments, they've identified some enhancements and upgrades that need to be done to the servers, which are not in this budget. So Vice, you're not going to overspend here. So it's poorly worded, but what he's trying to say there is that we will not go over budget in IT, even though we're at almost 70%, with only 40% in the year, but that we will address those capital concerns in the FY19 budget. That's all he's saying.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions on the report? If not, we have a motion to receive and place on file.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Ladies, be careful going home with the slick roads, please, and especially out front there on the sidewalk. We have 2 items in correspondence. A letter to Governor Raimondo about the Energy Siting Board's ruling of October 17 from the Town Council of Gloucester, and also a letter from the Aquinic Island Land Trust on the status of Mount Hope Park. I have a motion to receive those and place them on file, or does anybody want to do any action on either one?
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next meeting we have is January 22nd. Following the meeting on January 22nd, on that Friday, I believe is going to be dodgeball time again. January 22nd will be Project Purple Week. I see Dr. Ryan has started Project Purple already with his tie. Very nice. Break out your Advil, heating pads, and ice packs. I believe it's the Friday of the 26th. So Project Purple Week is the 22nd to the 26th. So it'll be that Friday night that we embarrass ourselves again. So we will be looking for victims or volunteers for the town council team, and it'll be a fun night, as it always is, and it's good to support the kids in the Project Purple group. Other scheduled meetings will be February 12th and the 26th. Anybody else have any other items they need to discuss?
Like on the audit, we're going to get that. Do we come in to pick up the audit tomorrow?
They didn't produce hard copies, so I'll send that electronically. If I can just get a show of hands on how many people would like a hard copy, we'll run that off. It's about 130 pages, I've heard. All right, we'll take care of it. I'll put them in your boxes.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Good night, everybody. Be careful, please, heading home on a